Tamam. Arkadaşlar beraber felsefe. Arkadaşlar beraber felsefe. Tamam. Sifit ses var. Ve ben var. O ben de site altın nakama oy isim olan ses var mı? Yoksa ses yok. Masa üstü. Neyse. Okey, tamam. Basalım. Saat bölüm. Evet, bu desa. Görevin dendir. Bakıyor. Sa. Uzak alma. Yemek istiyor. Veya mı? İki tane. İki tane. Dedikten sonra tak. Doğru testi. Başla. Bakın. Normal. Bismillah.
Yes, sir. Prepare.
Ah,
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Building.
Yok.
Comrade. Our base is under attack. Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
There it goes.
Structure sold.
Para
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Bismillah var.
Structure sold. Structure sold. Structure sold.
Bismillah var.
Unit ready. Structure sold.
Para
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
hepsi bitti.
Acknowledged.
Bunlar elektrikli bir şey konuşsan riski.
Yes, sir.
No.
Affirmative.
Building. On hold.
Daha lazım.
Cancel.
Reporting.
Preparing.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Preparing.
Reporting. At once.
Üstüme geliyorum.
Unit
Üstüme.
prepared.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Fakat ne olursa.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Ah,
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Para var mı?
Acknowledged.
Fakat.
Building.
Para.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Report affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yok.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Bismillah varmış.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Devam et.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Uçak yok.
Affirmative.
Mümkün.
Acknowledged.
Helikopter
Acknowledged.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Kapalı.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Reis
ready.
burada.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Kapalı.
Acknowledged.
Kısık.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Kom-
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Comrade. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Is under attack.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Lütfen buradan mı?
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Dem-
Affirmative.
Prepare.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Comrade.
Bunu kartı.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Öyle bir uçma.
Waiting order. Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ya.
Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Aa,
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Tamam.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Tamam.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Hah.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Uçmalarla.
Acknowledged. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Tamam.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Aa,
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting affirmative.
No.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yeah.
Unit lost.
Okay.
On hold.
tamam.
Cancel. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Base
Affirmative.
is under attack.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds. Repair.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Tamam,
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
evet,
Repaired.
Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir.
Ya,
Yes, sir.
rahatsız edeceksin rahatsız. Yavaş yavaş sevmiyor. Ha, şuna.
Sold. Repairing. Unit ready. Unit repaired. Repairing.
Sola.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ha.
Reporting. Affirmative. Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ne yapıyor?
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Ben böyle geliyor alma. Yok.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Waiting
Building.
order. Yes, sir.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Ya.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Repairing. On hold.
Affirmative. Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Awaiting orders.
Repairing.
Bakın.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Ready and waiting.
Rahat.
Building.
Yes,
Unit
affirmative.
repaired.
Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged.
Burada
Affirmative.
yıkanıyor.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Destim gördün mü?
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Altını istiyorum.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Hobi.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Zaman.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade.
On hold.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Ne yaptı ya?
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Ve ben var mı? Çok hızlı.
Acknowledged.
Rahat ya.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Ben
Acknowledged.
burası. Bekliyorum.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Böyle var.
Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Helikopter.
Affirmative.
Ah burada var.
Acknowledged.
Buradan biz. Ne bek?
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Boş.
Acknowledged.
Tamam.
Vehicle reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Çok az mülasat
Unit
varsa
ready.
lazım.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Comrade.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
9000.
Awaiting
Aa,
orders. Yes, sir.
At once.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Reporting.
At once.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Uçak
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Preparing.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting.
buna
Structure sold. Structure sold. Building.
Vehicle
Acknowledged.
reporting.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
sağlansın.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Affirmative.
Building.
Comrade.
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Comrade.
Awaiting
Acknowledged.
orders.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yakın.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Kas.
Vehicle
Unit
reporting.
ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Bir tane mi?
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Ülke
Preparing.
buradan. Aa,
Waiting
buradasam. Evet
Comrade.
buradasam.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Waiting
Unit
order.
prepared.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Hah bunda.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Our base is under attack. Preparing.
Yes, sir.
Comrade.
Burası.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Hah
Affirmative.
buradan.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged. Report. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Burası. Aa!
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Hah
Affirmative.
buradan.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative. Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Preparing. Unit
Waiting
ready.
order. Affirmative.
Hala.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Kapağına.
Acknowledged.
Dua.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Lost.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Lost.
Affirmative.
Ha, dur.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds. On hold. Building.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting.
buradan.
Affirmative. Ready and waiting.
Lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Kapağına.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Uçak yok.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Awaiting. Acknowledged.
Basma.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Hah buradan.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Ready and waiting.
Lost.
Acknowledged.
Basit.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Ready and waiting.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Structure sold. Unit
Comrade,
ready.
acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Structure sold. Building.
Comrade, affirmative. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Comrade. Comrade. Acknowledged.
Çok saçma.
Base is under attack.
Affirmative.
Neyse var uçak.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Takım
Acknowledged.
yani.
Acknowledged.
Base is under attack.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Ah.
Acknowledged.
Uçak ya.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Unit lost.
Alakamen.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Uçak ne de
funds.
ses.
Affirmative.
Zıp.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Our base is under
Affirmative.
attack. Unit lost.
Evet tabii uçakta. Tekrar yapın. Saçma. Kapanırsın.
Building. Our base is under attack. Training.
Daha yapın. Şimdi öyle sapı bitiyor. Neyse normal. Biraz
Training. Building. Our base is under attack. Preparing. Unit ready.
Engineering. Yes, sir. At once.
Building.
Ready and waiting.
Our base is under attack.
Ready and waiting. Yes, sir.
Unit lost. Structure sold. Structure sold. Structure sold. Structure sold. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting.
Structure sold.
devam edelim.
Structure sold. Unit ready. Structure sold. Structure sold.
Affirmative.
Is under attack. Building. Structure sold. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Ready and
Nasıl
waiting.
yapacağım?
Structure sold. Structure sold. Unit ready. Building.
Comrade.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir.
Hükümet varsa lazım.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
On hold. Cancel.
Daha lazım.
Building.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Personel için. Nokta. Yani.
Unit
Waiting
ready.
order. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Çok güzel dokun.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Ready and waiting. Reporting.
Unit ready.
Awaiting
Affirmative.
orders.
Building.
Very well.
Preparing.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Ready and
Affirmative.
waiting. Very well.
Etmen lazım.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Comrade.
prepared.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Buna
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
bulursam
Affirmative.
daha iyi.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Acknowledged.
Kapalı.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Burada tam.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Comrade.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Vehicle
Acknowledged.
reporting.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting
Waiting
orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Waiting
Acknowledged.
orders.
Çok fazla.
Yes, sir.
Waiting
Acknowledged.
orders.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
On hold. Cancel.
Yes,
Ülke
sir.
bulursam
Acknowledged.
Preparing.
Yes, sir.
belki
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Aa,
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
ülkenin elesi.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Comrade. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Pa.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged. Reporting. Comrade. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Hah, güzel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle report.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Comrade.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Vehicle
funds.
affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Report acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Comrade. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Ya da ıslak yapıyor.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Waiting affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
On hold.
Comrade.
Yeah.
Preparing.
Reporting.
lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient funds.
Comrade, affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Comrade, affirmative. Acknowledged. Comrade, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ama bulursa.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting
Base is
order.
under attack. Preparing.
Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting
At
orders.
once.
Preparing.
Yes,
Awesome.
acknowledged. Yes,
Base is under
affirmative.
attack.
Affirmative.
Preparing.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Az kaldı.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. At once. Agreed. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Our base is under attack.
Ready and waiting. Yes, sir.
Building. On hold.
Reporting.
Cancel.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Yes, very well.
Unit lost.
Waiting order.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, affirmative. Affirmative.
Lazım.
Comrade, affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
ready. Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Normal önce biraz beklesin.
Yes, sir. At once.
Preparing. Unit ready. Building. Structure sold. Structure sold. Structure sold. Structure sold. Unit ready. Building. Structure sold.
Bakımları
Sold.
Tutsak.
Structure sold.
bütün vurarsak mı?
Unit ready. Building. Structure sold.
Nasıl
Report
bekliyorum
affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit
Ah
ready.
varsa onu sor.
Building.
Waiting order.
Ne yapsam?
Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Tamam.
Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Da.
Building.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Waiting order. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Comrade.
Böyle biraz bekleyin.
Preparing.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Çok yani komutan.
Acknowledged. Waiting
Okay.
order. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Building. Preparing.
Yes,
On
sir.
hold.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit repaired.
Comrade. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Waiting order.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Biraz bekleyin.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting
Comrade.
orders. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Preparing.
Vehicle reporting.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yavaş yavaş.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
On hold.
Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared. Preparing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Vehicle affirmative. Affirmative.
Bunda.
Building. Unit
Comrade.
ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Bunda.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Unit
Waiting
ready.
order.
Building.
Vehicle
Prepared.
reporting.
Insufficient
Vehicle reporting.
funding.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative.
Preparing.
Comrade.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Yavaş yavaş yavaş.
Reporting.
Waiting order. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Yes, sir.
Unit repaired.
Vehicle reporting.
Comrade. Comrade. Acknowledged.
On
Vehicle
hold.
reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Preparing. Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Waiting acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Lazım.
repaired.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Sakın popalan ülke. Yapı öldürme lazım.
Repairing. Building.
Ama kapanmasın.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ben var.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Vehicle
funds.
reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting
Yes,
order.
sir.
Reporting.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting
yes,
order.
Sir.
Affirmative. Comrade.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Affirmative.
Ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Waiting
Affirmative.
order. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Comrade.
Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Repairing. Insufficient
Reporting.
funds.
Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Comrade.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Reporting.
Yes,
Building.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
funds. On hold.
Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Awaiting
Affirmative.
orders.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting
Acknowledged.
orders.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Comrade.
Yes, sir.
Tamam. O katman fazla lazım.
Repairing. Unit repaired. Repairing.
Waiting order.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Report
repaired.
acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Waiting
Acknowledged.
order.
Yes, sir.
Comrade. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
repaired. Repairing.
Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting
Unit
orders.
repaired.
Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
ready.
Vehicle
Building.
reporting.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
prepared.
Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Comrade.
Unit prepared.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Vehicle
Unit
reporting.
ready. Building.
Teman-teman. O katman.
Insufficient funds.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle
Yes,
reporting.
sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Unit
Comrade.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Hallettim.
Mission saved.
Yes, sir.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Waiting
Building.
order.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds. Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
On
Yes,
hold.
acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting.
Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Structure sold.
Waiting
Building.
order. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Ah,
Acknowledged.
ulan.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged.
hold.
Affirmative.
Training.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds. Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Yes, affirmative.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Awaiting
Orders.
acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Awaiting
Vehicle
orders.
reporting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Oh,
Reporting.
ne yapıyor?
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Öyle devam
Affirmative.
etmesi.
Building. On hold.
Daha lazım.
Cancel. Building. Training. On hold.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Training.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative.
Report affirmative.
Evet söyle.
Vehicle
Affirmative.
reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Training.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Comrade. Comrade. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Training.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Waiting order.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Vehicle
Acknowledged.
reporting.
Affirmative. Report
Yeah.
acknowledged.
Engineering, affirmative.
Report
Tamam,
acknowledged.
tamam.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Tamam.
training.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Training.
Acknowledged.
Ha.
Unit
Bitti.
ready. Training.
El kurmam var.
Unit ready. Training.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Training.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Bra.
Acknowledged.
Bunlar burada
Affirmative.
Ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction options.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Is under attack. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Very well.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Vehicle
Acknowledged.
reporting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Uzaklandı. Bitti mi? Gördün mü?
Comrade,
Unit ready. Building.
affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Very well.
Building.
Ready and waiting. Acknowledged. At once.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
Unit
Awaiting
ready.
or acknowledged?
Building.
Hiçbir zaman.
Acknowledged.
On hold. Cancel.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting
Saklandı.
orders. Very well.
Alma. İmpa.
Mission saved.
Bilmiyorum. Vurabilmezsin.
Yes, sir.
Tamam. Burası.
Waiting
Affirmative.
order.
Yes, sir. At once.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Arkamı al.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Report.
Waiting
Affirmative.
order.
New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Very well.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Da da da da da da.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Report acknowledged.
Arkamı
Affirmative.
burası.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Da.
Yes, sir.
Devam etsin.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Uçak yok.
Acknowledged.
İsti.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Da.
Insufficient
Reporting.
funds.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Doğru. Uzak. Ülke.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Uygulama.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
ready.
engineering.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Bunu anasam.
Battle control.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Arkamı lazım.
Affirmative.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Bas.
Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Cidden böyle.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Waiting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ne öyle?
Acknowledged.
Para almıyor.
Affirmative.
Lost.
Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative. Comrade, affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Bunda
Comrade, acknowledge. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
New construction
el
options.
görme var.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Anlasam.
Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Engineering.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Training.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Bilmem Ahmet Noka.
Training. Building. On hold. Unit
Awaiting
ready.
orders.
Cancel.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Training.
De
Affirmative.
öğren.
Unit ready. Training.
Vehicle report.
Ne
Acknowledged.
bileyim abi.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Training.
Report. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Awaiting orders.
Unit ready.
Comrade.
Yes, sir. Engineering. Affirmative.
Repair.
Engineering.
Awaiting
Unit
orders.
repaired. Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Az kalmışsın.
Comrade. Waiting order.
Vehicle
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Report. Affirmative. Report. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repair.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Bilmem vuruyor.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Very well.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Engineering.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
At once.
Unit lost.
Waiting orders.
Yes, sir. Reporting. At once. Affirmative. Agreed. At once. At once. Reporting. Of course.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Okay.
Very well. Yes, sir. Agreed.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Yes, sir. Very well.
Repairing. Building. Building.
Reporting.
Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
At once.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Waiting. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Unit
Ah
lost.
Affirmative.
buradan var.
Ready and waiting. At once.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. Training. Unit
Reporting.
ready.
Affirmative.
Training. Unit ready.
Awaiting orders.
Umarım öğrenmeyin.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Agreed. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Comrade.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative.
Ne yapıyor alma?
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting
Unit
order.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Report agreed. Affirmative.
Training. Unit ready. Training.
Burada çok var.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Ready and waiting.
Unit
Ready and
ready.
waiting. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Waiting
Affirmative.
order.
Unit ready.
Vehicle report.
Beni
Affirmative.
buradasın.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Takılıyorum.
Affirmative. Report affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Training.
Comrade, affirmative.
Unit ready. Training.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Böyle battı.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering.
Waiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Training.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Evet.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Training.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Vehicle
Training.
report. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Training.
Aa, bitti alma.
Unit ready.
Yes. Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Comrade, affirmative. Affirmative.
Lan.
Waiting affirmative.
Report affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Tamam.
Yes.
Report
Affirmative.
acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Yes, sir. Very well. Of course. Yes, sir. Report acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Ready and waiting.
Mission saved.
Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Bunlar.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Affirmative.
New
Oh
construction
be.
options.
Mükemmel.
Building.
Yes, sir. Very well.
Böyle rahat.
Construction complete. New construction options. Primary
Buyurun.
building
Engineering.
selected.
Yes,
Affirmative.
sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Very well. Report affirmative.
Yes. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Vehicle acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Başka var mı?
Yes, sir. Vehicle acknowledged.
Waiting acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Vehicle
Affirmative.
reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Doğru mu?
Repairing.
Reporting. Waiting acknowledged.
O zaman bu 4 tane lazım.
Engineering.
Silence
Affirmative.
needed.
5
On
tane tamir lazım.
training. Unit ready.
Şimdi
Vehicle
var.
reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Çok pahalı.
Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Hasan ne var bakalım.
Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Training.
Hmm.
Repairing. Unit ready.
Engineering.
Training.
Affirmative.
No.
Affirmative.
Unit repaired. Unit ready. Training. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
On hold.
Yes,
Cancel.
sir. Affirmative.
Engineering. Construction complete. Training. Unit ready. Training. Unit repaired. Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Training.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Training.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Engineering. Affirmative.
Ne var?
Building. On hold. Building. Cancel. On hold. Cancel.
Bak burada yok.
Building.
Bakın.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Ha.
Repair.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, affirmative. Affirmative.
Kullanılamaz.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yok.
Repairing.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Burada bakalım.
Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Building. Repairing. On hold.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Comrade. Affirmative.
Buraya konasın.
Unit repaired. Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Bakalım.
Yes, sir.
Training. Unit ready.
Comrade.
Training.
Yes, sir.
Waiting
Unit
order.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle report. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Primary building selected. Building. Unit
Awaiting
ready.
orders. Affirmative.
Bakalım ne
Engineering.
var.
Affirmative.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Bakalım ne var.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building. Training.
Yes, sir.
Dur baba.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Bakma.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ne var.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
İstemiyorum.
Affirmative.
Ölüyor.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, affirmative. Report. Acknowledged.
Prepare.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
prepared.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
İstemiyorum ama iki hata var.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building. Silos needed. Construction
Hmm.
complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Repairing. Construction complete. Building.
Aa,
Unit
Yes, sir.
repaired.
Affirmative.
Repairing.
Waiting
Building.
order.
Construction
bir tane.
complete.
Reporting.
Benim
Unit repaired. Repairing.
biraz,
Repairing.
biraz ormandı.
Unit
Amen.
repaired. Building. Construction complete. Unit
Engineering.
repaired.
Affirmative.
O
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
buradan ölmek.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Abi bunu aldım. Yok.
Affirmative.
Tamam.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Okay.
Affirmative.
Building. Construction complete. Cannot deploy here.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged.
Bak isim mi? Üsmen geliyor helikopter binlerce ne bekliyor? Ben. Bu nasıl mı?
Reporting. Yes, sir.
İsimleri,
Affirmative.
isimleri merak etmiyorum.
Reporting.
Öyle mi?
Engineering.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting
Yes, sir.
orders.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Tamam,
Acknowledged.
tamam.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Notlar var.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Yes,
Construction
affirmative.
complete. Primary building selected. Training. Unit ready.
Neyse.
Training.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready. Training.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Training.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Training.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Training. Unit ready. Training. Unit ready.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Training.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Yes,
Training.
affirmative.
Unit ready.
Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative.
Training.
Engineering.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Training. Unit
Engineering.
ready.
Affirmative.
Training. Unit ready.
Çok iyi var.
Training. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Very well. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Training.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Reporting.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Reporting. Very well.
Training.
Engineering.
Reporting.
Unit
Agreed.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Very well.
Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering. Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
At once.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
La.
Repair.
Awaiting orders. Of course.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Training.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Training.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Ready and waiting.
Engineering.
Of
Affirmative.
course.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Böyle var. Tamam.
Waiting order.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Training. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Training.
Acknowledged.
Böyle var.
Insufficient
Ne var?
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Awaiting
Acknowledged.
orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Tanesi mi?
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
45.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Primary building selected. Training. Unit ready. Training. Unit ready. Training.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Çünkü daha vardı.
Insufficient funds. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Primary building selected. Training.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
ready.
sir. Affirmative.
Training.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. At once.
Ready.
Engineering.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Ready and waiting. At once.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Prepare.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Prepare.
Agreed. Agreed.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Report
Affirmative.
acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting order.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Primary building selected. Training. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Ama anlasam. Bakın.
Awaiting orders.
Training.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Nasıl alsam ben.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Mission set.
Bakalım.
Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing. Building.
Yes, sir.
Devam
Engineering.
mı?
Affirmative.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction options. Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Hoppa.
Acknowledged.
New construction options. Primary building selected.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Report
Unit
affirmative.
ready. On
Yes,
hold.
sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
Comrade.
Awaiting orders.
Eso.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Engineering.
Vehicle
Affirmative.
reporting.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Vehicle
Reporting.
reporting.
Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes,
Awaiting
sir.
knowledge.
Options.
Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Engineering. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative.
Waiting order.
New
Affirmative.
construction options.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Bakın bu bana
Yes, sir.
söylüyorsa bakalım.
Affirmative.
Kaç tane var mısın?
Yes, sir. Engineering. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting.
Bir tane gelsin.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Cancel.
Awaiting orders.
Dur.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Mission saved.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
New construction options. Building.
Bitmedi.
Construction complete.
Waiting
Structure
orders.
sold. New construction options.
Öyle bir
Building.
bitleniyor.
Construction complete. New construction
Bilmiyorum.
options.
Daha kalmış.
Yes, sir. Ready and waiting.
Waiting acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Kimse yok mu?
Yes, sir. Very well. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Agreed.
Ama uçak var mı? Yok. Ha, var mısın? Yok. Bak elkama var. Asker var. Böyle yok tak. Hem de askerler.
Ready and waiting. At once. Agreed.
Tamam.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative. At once. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Daha kalmışsın. Bakalım.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Report affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Engineering. Affirmative.
New construction options.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Tamam. Tamam.
Awaiting
Pardon,
orders. Affirmative.
Bak. Böyle bölüyor. Böyle bölüyor.
Yes, sir.
İşitme.
Vehicle reporting.
Yapma.
Engineering.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Ha.
Yes, sir.
Evet.
Mission saved.
Bakın
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
bu manasını böyle koymuşsun.
Mission accomplished.
Çok komik. Uçak çok fena.
Zal Rossio. Zal Jensen. Zal Roskik Jensen. Excellent work in the Ukraine, Commander. You are ambitious. Ambition can be very useful. Might find your way into a cramped corner office in a drafty old building in what used to be the better part of Moscow. I like you. I like you very much. And I am Russian. I do not like anybody. but I drink to you, comrade.
Bitti. Sonra devam edersek tutsak kapatsak bunu tutsak neydi tutsak bu mevzuda biraz bekini tak sonra tutsak sonra sonra alkol daha fazla burası ama tutsak nasıl tutsak duyuyor tutun sonra tanesi böyle ikisi tutsak yayınlanmaları ne kadar güzel iptal sonra devam ederse ben kapatıyorum iyi akşamlar teşekkürler.